Welcome to the Leadernomics Show. I'm with Marilee Adams, President of the Inquiry Institute, Executive Coach, and international bestseller of this book, Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. Marilee, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you with us. Tell us a little bit about how you got into the space. I think you're also an adjunct professor at the American Institute.
At American University.
American University.
I teach a leadership course in the School of Public Affairs.
Okay. How did you get into this whole space? And how did you become who you became?
And as I said earlier, and I'm still becoming.
Absolutely. We all are, right?
That is correct. And if we ever think we're stopping, we're gone.
Yep, absolutely.
So originally, I have a degree in psychology, and I was a therapist for many years, and learned a lot about thinking and relationships. And after many, many years, I wrote a textbook in psychology and left.
That's the art of
the question.
Yep.
And decided I wanted to take what I had learned into the world beyond psychology, into the world of organizations and business and teaching and coaching. And it's worked very well. And then after doing that successfully for a long time, I discovered, I wrote this book, the first edition in 2004, the second edition 2009, and this book, which is really a leadership coaching business book, made its way also into education in K through 12 and also higher education.
Fantastic.
And then I started getting requests from colleges and universities and K through 12 to do work with teachers and school systems. So I have a lot of fun.
So what does this book tell us? I mean, what's the big insight here?
The big insight here, you see on the cover, it says the power of question thinking. And all of this work is based on kind of a reformulation of what thinking is. So the way that we think is actually an internal question and answer process.
Okay.
And when you realize that you're asking yourself questions all the time, and the questions you ask yourself pretty much shape how you feel, how you think, how you behave, how you relate, and what kind of results that you get, then it becomes very motivating to learn how to identify the questions that are already there so that you can decide whether those are the ones that you want to shape your future.
So I know the saying that says that answers don't change the world, questions do, right?
That's correct.
So I'm sure you subscribe to that. So can you give us some examples of how this works?
Sure. So right now we're having a conversation.
Right.
And I'm going to guess that you're asking yourself some questions, such as, what will be of interest to our viewers? What do they want to learn?
Absolutely.
What questions should I ask that will bring out the most interesting and useful advice from Marilee? And so notice you're shaking your head because you can identify those questions.
Yes.
And then the way you answered those questions was you communicated with me. So in a similar way, a lot of the work that I do is around teaching leaders how to think. And when they understand the question-driven nature of their thinking, and they can alter their questions if they want different results, then it becomes a skill that they can use not just as leaders, but also everywhere in their lives.
So you call this question thinking, right?
I do.
So essentially, it's a skill that anyone can learn, right?
Well, it is a skill anyone can learn. All of us think with questions. But you know what? There's a big difference between asking questions, which everybody does, and using questions, which very few people do because they don't understand.
So explain that to me. Explain that to me a bit. Using questions, what does that mean?
Well, it means I understand the impact of questions. I understand the importance of the structure of them.
Right.
I understand the importance of the mindset from which one asks a question. I understand that questions, the questions come alive in their impact. And so questions are inherently relational. So when I understand all that, then I think about questions in a very, I pay a lot of attention to the structure of the questions, to the impact of the questions, and how that makes a relationship work.
No, I can see that can be a very important tool for leaders too, right? Or especially senior leaders.
Well, not only senior leaders.
For all leaders, right?
Because we have leaders, many different definitions. First of all, obviously senior leaders, but we also have a leadership pipeline. We have the whole concept of leadership by influence, not only position. And we also understand the importance of leaders empowering those around them. So in all of those cases, the more that you can manage your own thinking and your own mindset, the better you're going to be.
Wow. Now, you said you were a therapist for a long time, 25 years or so, right?
Yeah.
How has that influenced your work? How has that helped you to be who you are?
Well, it helped quite a lot because it gave me a very deep understanding of how people think, what motivates them, what is required for real change to happen and not superficial change. And so all of the things that I learned were very easily imported into the business and organizational space. And I think that what I'm able to do and see is richer because of I've been taught so well by so many people. In my practice, also all my teachers.
So if you were to impart some words of advice to, like, say, a CEO of an organization, what nuggets of wisdom would you advise them?
For the CEO of an organization, this might sound funny, but I would want a leader to be asking themselves, am I leading from ego or am I leading from service?
Okay.
And that question will tell a person a lot about what they're doing and the depth of it. I think that too often these days we worry about the short term and the apparent result and not about the long term and thinking systemically and also thinking in terms of good communication, really listening to the people around us, empowering the people around us. And those are the skills for 21st century leaders, and they're imperative. They're imperative.
What advice would you give a young person who's starting up, just finished university, raring to get into the world? I mean,
well, I have an example of that actually. Sure. My publisher is Barrett Kohler in San Francisco, United States, and Barrett Kohler is a very mission-driven publishing house, and everything in there is about, all of our books are about creating a world that works for all. So we have started a foundation called the BK Barrett Kohler Foundation, and the purpose of it is to empower young emerging leaders up to age 35.
Okay.
And the reason, well, among the many reasons for this, is that particularly in nonprofits, young leaders are not getting leadership development or professional development, and they need it so badly. So I've been lucky to get a small grant from the BK Foundation, and I've been working with an elementary school in Brooklyn, New York. It's an Achievement First charter school, and two of their leaders under age 35 have attended some of our workshops, and we've also gone to the school and done some work with the entire staff. And what was so exciting about it is we did a process with the staff really to empower the leader as well as the staff. It turned out to be a very difficult issue, which I didn't know at first. And the leader, her name is Camila Lopez. She is the principal. Kevin Lohila is the academic dean. And they were able to use that difficult situation to learn from and to turn the entire thing around, which was so exciting. So the question of what would you advise a young leader to be asking themselves over and over, what can I learn from this? What assumptions am I making? How am I empowering the people around me? How can I listen better? What do people and circumstances have to teach me? And what is the best that I can offer to give them the future that they want and deserve?
Absolutely. You wrote another book, Teaching That Changes Lives.
I did.
Now, I've always learned, with my background with GE and stuff, that teaching is such an important thing for leaders to do. What do you advocate in this book?
Teaching That Changes Lives is focused on the mindset of the teacher first, before the student, in the spirit of You know, when you get on an airplane and they say fasten your seatbelt first and then take
Then to, yeah.
not your seatbelt, the oxygen
yeah,
mask.
yeah.
Well, in that same sense, teachers, I think that what they do is so noble and so incredibly important and so incredibly difficult. And they need all the tools they can to manage their own mindsets, to maintain their own equanimity and equilibrium in a classroom. Because teachers are, not only do they need it for themselves, but they're also models for students. Models of patience, models of good thinking, models of collaboration. And so much of the work in the world of education is focused on do this for the students. And so I'm reversing that and saying, do this also for the teachers. And there's so much research that says that professional development for teachers is one of the biggest things that makes a difference for students. So this book focuses on that.
And this is not just for teachers. I mean, any one of us who wants to become better teachers can.
And also parents.
Yeah, because parents are great. I mean, parents are key teachers in many of these young people's lives.
They certainly are.
Absolutely. So, just to summarize this whole thing, if you can leave our viewers with one or two key nuggets of wisdom. Okay, I know it's about questions, having special questions, but is there something specific that they can learn in terms of how they can craft questions and how they can ask questions or how they can think about questions?
Yes, of course. I mean, I could talk about this for hours.
I'm sure.
You can see
If
that.
you can leave us with one quick nugget of wisdom.
I'll give you two quotes then.
Sure.
One is that great results begin with great questions, and the other is every question missed is a potential crisis waiting to happen.
That's interesting. I remember a story of Albert Einstein, and his mom used to tell him, ask your teachers two questions that they cannot answer. And that led him to a lot of, that instilled curiosity and a whole bunch of...
That's right. And he says, and the important thing is not to stop questioning, Albert
Absolutely.
Einstein. We can learn from everybody.
I would love to continue questioning you, but we're out of time, so I'll have to stop questioning her. I'm with Dr. Marilee Adams, executive coach, international bestseller author, and of course, president of Bestseller Author and Institute. Dr. Marilee, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you.